Hello there, everybody. Welcome back. Sean Sheehan here, joined again by Brad Wharton as we look ahead to Cage Warriors 181, which goes down November 23rd in the Tune, Newcastle. The Virtue Motors Arena, which has seen a lot of good MMA, I feel like, over the last while. I feel like I've named out that arena once or twice over the last while. And Brad, it's an area I think that was probably underappreciated for a very, very long time, but not so much over the last few years. Is it the Newcastle area? Obviously, that part of England with Sunderland and Middlesbrough and stuff around there. There's some good teams and some good fighters coming out of that area, and they're getting some good cards now as well. So it's kind of paying back. Tell us about that area. Obviously, you've worked a lot around, not just with Cage Warriors, but on the local scene coming up. There's a lot of talent, not just coming out of that area, but has come out of that area over the last while, and they deserve this big card, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, there's always been sort of, the smaller regional shows operating around that area. And, they just need that commitment of bigger shows to go there and just light a fire under the scene. You know, Cage Warriors went up there just over 10 years ago, did a couple of shows at the arena. And, the scene maybe wasn't ready just quite yet, but it's definitely there now. And you see in Cage Warriors, you've seen other promotions going to Newcastle. The other benefit you've got with Newcastle is that we're only just down the road from Scotland. So fans from Scotland who want to see, an international level event don't have too far to travel. It feels like there's definitely a buzz about the area now. And obviously, a lot of that comes down to the fighters that you've got competing out of those places. I guess the one thing that maybe the Northeast didn't have 10 years ago was, a sort of 4, 5, 6 big stars for people to build shows around. Whereas now, just on Cage Warriors, for example, we've got Justin Burlinson, we've got the Hardwicks, we've got Kennedy Freeman, and then we've got loads of guys coming up on the undercards that are going to be filling those slots in a few years to come. So it's a great time for the region, and it's great to be able to take some world-class MMA back up there.
I remember talking to Jake Smith a while back, who's obviously from Newcastle and has covered the sport there very, very well over the last few years. And remember, we were in Dublin, and I was kind of chanting him, and he's like, "Jesus, we really need someone to emerge. Can't always be McGregor and things like that, but we need a champion. We need a James Gallagher level, or an Ian Gary or someone like that." And it feels like at the moment, as you guys mentioned there, especially the Hardwicks, obviously with the 2 titles being held, they have a few options now. And like from that chat, 4, 5, 6 years ago maybe to now, there has been a lot of lads who have really kind of helped the scene, and it's no longer just Aaron Chalmers and a couple more. It's real fighters now. Let's put it that way. No disrespect to all Aaron. He's actually a pretty nice guy. I've interviewed him a few times. He's actually dead on. I don't know why I took a shot at Aaron Chalmers. There's absolutely no need for that. I'd like to apologize to Aaron Chalmers right now. I actually do really like him. Anyway, speaking of one of those guys, though, it's Harry Hardwick in the main event with the featherweight title on the line here. And looking at Harry and looking at his opponent, Keweny Lopes, this is a fucking very intriguing fight. I love looking at a fight. I remember Bilal Muhammad and Leon Edwards, the first time they fought, they had the exact same record. It was like 15-2 or whatever it was. And then I love when lads have a very similar record. They're at a very similar time in their career, a very similar age, and all of that, and they meet at the exact right time. And I feel like this is that fight. You look at Keweny's record, look, he's 11-1, but the 1-on-1 happened in the first and second fight of his career against the same guy. He's won 11 fights in a row since 2016, and he didn't fight for 2 years between 2016 and 2018. So it's really in this part of his career, he's 10-0 and is knocking guys out all over the place. So this is the guy who's coming in to fight Harry Hardwick on the biggest fight of his career probably. And look at what Harry has done over the last while. He's 1 draw in the middle of 6 wins in a row. Only lost to Richie Smullen, since 2018. It's been some run for Harry, and it's funny as well because sometimes, you look at George and he came through and he won the belt, and you're thinking, can his brother do the same? And then he does it. It's been a real good period for Harry Hardwick here, Brad, and maybe we don't always see it. We, from the second brother coming through, maybe, but Harry Hardwick has taken that mantle off, and now he's right there with his brother at the very top.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, remember Harry's the elder brother as well. I think a lot of people thought that George was the elder brother because he won the title first, but which, you know, is obviously some mad MMA fan logic. But I'll be honest, I think it may have crossed my mind at some point as well.
Me too. I didn't know that until you just said it.
But look, you know, you can't fault either Hardwick brother. They're both absolute monsters when the cage door shuts. And like you say, Sean, you know, these are two guys in this main event, very similar positions. You know, they're both on red hot streaks, you know, doing the absolute best work of their careers. Both had a little blemish years ago. Nobody cares. Doesn't matter. Irrelevant at this stage. You know, it's what they're doing in recent fights that matters. And what they're doing in recent fights is it's been very, very good work. You know, Harry's had some atrocious luck with opponents. You know, people quite rightly have not been queuing up to fight this guy. You know, everybody wants to fight for the title until it's actually, you know, put down on the plate in front of them. You know, not everybody's a Tobias Harrella who just says yes to everything. And, you know, anybody involved in the fight game for any length of time knows that, you know, these are the things that happen. But look, when Hardwick's got in the cage, when he's got an opponent in front of him, he's looked absolutely sublime. You know, you look back at the Vita Estevan, that crazy rear naked choke where he took the dude's back in quick as a flash. You know, we all know what his striking is about. You know, he's got that kind of rat-a-tat-tat, you know, Diaz brother style, if you like, with his punching. Very, very fast, ridiculous stamina, ridiculous cardio. He is going to go out there and he is going to put it on you for the duration. You know, great fights with the likes of Jean and Doi. You know, he's got all the tools. And then you look at Keweny Lopes, dudes are just a wrecking ball, right? You know, this isn't a rat-tat-tat guy. This is a swing of the hammer guy. Like he's, you know, it's the old Joe Rogan line, right? He is swinging to kill you. Like this is what this guy does. And he's got that death touch, you know, he's landing big shots and people are just going night. So a great clash of styles here. Look, the atmosphere in this building is going to be absolutely wild, right? You've got two other fighters from the region competing for world titles earlier in the night. So, you know, if the worst in the world happens and those two have lost, the fans are going to have all their hopes pinned on Harry Hardwick. If both the Northeast fighters have won their world title fights, the atmosphere in that place is going to be insane. You know, either way, this is going to be one of those, you know, I'm thinking atmosphere-wise, like Nathaniel Wood in the Indigo or Paddy Pimblett in the Echo. I think this is going to be, you know, potentially that star-making moment for Harry Hardwick. If you can go out and get the job done here, this is going to be the one that makes that phone ring.
God, I'm excited now. That's after making me very excited about this. And you're dead right, because the clash of styles is the one thing I know is going back watching both of them. Obviously, you mentioned Harry there. Like, I think the one thing people could have maybe said against Harry was he went to a lot of decisions, not a lot of finishes. But then these last two, he goes out and finishes both of them, while still having in his back pocket that, like, he's won a lot of decisions and is well able to go 3 rounds. Now, this is obviously a title fight in 5 rounds, so that will definitely be a plus point for him. But you look at Lopes, right? And his style is not exactly the style of someone who's going to gas out, because he doesn't do much, right? He stands there and he waits and he waits and he waits and then bangs you out of there. Like, I'm looking at his second last fight, 4:36 of round 4, he got the finish. That's exactly a case in point of what this guy is. You know, watching some of his fights, he's a good few fights on UFC Fight Pass as well. You know, he fought at the top of an LFA card in his last fight. So I'm not sure how I'll be honest, I'm not sure how he even got him to fight in this, to be honest, because
I don't think LFA were happy, but there we go.
Probably not. But he's had a few fights, obviously, and shoot on other places as well. This guy is a fucking beast. You know, he's probably one of the best fighters you've never heard of, if that's a way to put it. And you know, that left hook he throws is massive power. Like, he's the type of guy you could put a very good highlight reel together of, you know. And for Harry Hardwick, like, we see this fight an awful lot in mixed martial arts now, right? A guy who is looking for that big knockout and looking for the counter against the guy who's happy to kind of pick you off. Now, I'm sure he'll want to finish or a takedown and a choke or a big knockout or whatever, but he's also very happy to probably go 5 rounds and win for 50-45 or whatever. And it's the sort of fight I think Harry Hardwick will be ahead of until the fight ends. Now, the fight might end after 25 minutes and he might win a decision and he'll win every single round. You know, the fight might end when Harry Hardwick gets the finish. But it also might end when Keweny Lopes gets the finish because he only needs one. As you said, that power he has, Brad, it's absolutely insane. And it's a type of fight, I don't know if, the one that obviously excites me is not exactly the same, but Dos Santos Mark Hunt, you're just waiting and waiting and waiting for someone to get knocked out, and it came in that fight. Sometimes it doesn't always come in those fights, but by God, this is the sort of fight, Brad, where you're sitting there and you're doing your commentary, and it's 4 rounds in, and maybe Hardwick is well ahead. You're not going to be able to rest in your laurels, are you? Because that power is always going to be there.
Yeah, absolutely. This really is one of those fights where I think if these guys fight each other 10 times, you're going to get a whole lot of different outcomes. You're not going to see Harry get knocked out 10 times. You're not going to see Harry get 10 decisions. There's so much that could happen here, and none of it would be a massive surprise when you sit and think about it after the fact. And that's what makes it such a good fight for me. The fight, look, I watch fights every weekend. I commentate on fights every weekend, and I've been doing this for a decade and a half. I've seen pretty much everything. The fights that I really love are the fights where I'm looking at them and thinking, I haven't got a clue what's going to happen in this one. And I think that's why we love the sport, right? Because we get a lot of those at this level. And that's why I'm absolutely pumped for this main event.
Yeah, me too. I if I to give my pick, I'm going to throw out Hardwick as the pick. I think I feel like it could be 5 rounds really, and it could be him jabbing him up and kicking those legs out from under him and things like that. I think Hardwick has shown the ability to do that, but it's a very, very fun one. Looking forward to seeing how it goes. Let's move on. Let's talk about the women's bantamweight title is on the line. Keweny Freeman against Mafalda Carmona, which I think a lot of people will be very, very happy about. It's very hard, for women to get these big opportunities over the last while, especially I think since the pandemic, since the UFC opened up extra divisions as well. Invicta are back and stuff. So the opportunity, and at the point I'm making is the opportunities are kind of coming back, I suppose. And Cage Warriors putting on this fight as well. And they've put on a good few women's MMA fights over the last while. But Keweny Freeman is special, Brad, isn't she? She obviously, we know where she comes from. we know the stock, and she's coming in against Mafalda Carmona, who obviously this is going to be her first fight in Cage Warriors, but she's won 4 fights in a row. Has fought on some big cards, big KSW cards and things like that, and is obviously coming in here and looking to take down Keweny Freeman, who's going to be a big favourite coming in here. It's an intriguing fight, Brad, isn't it? And Cage Warriors have put a lot of time and effort, I think, into Keweny Freeman since she made her comeback in 2023. Obviously, she fought a few fights earlier in her career, but has made a comeback to MMA in the last 2 years. It's a big opportunity for Keweny Freeman, but for Cage Warriors as well, to showcase someone like Kennedy and to have her coming through, because I think if she wins this, she could very well be off to the UFC by Sunday morning.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think, I don't like to get ahead of myself with these kind of things and say, oh yeah, you could be off to the UFC, you could be off to the UFC. But I think if you look at Keweny Freeman, look, she's a knockout artist, which is not something that, you always see with women's bantamweights. I would imagine she's going to go down a weight division if she does go to the UFC, purely based on the size of the girls there. But yeah, she's got that knockout power. She's got that exciting fight style. She's the right age. She's got a load of finishes, and she's got that lineage of Ian Freeman. And if that's not got, standard UFC signing all over it, I don't know what has. Whether it's Contender Series or whether she just gets the call up, I would imagine that Keweny Freeman is going to be in the UFC sooner rather than later, should she keep winning. But look, as you say, it's not been the easiest to get the girls matched over the years, especially during COVID when we weren't able to bring people in from overseas as much. And Kennedy signs for this fight, and then a week later, her opponent, unfortunately, is not medically cleared. So fair play for Kennedy just sticking in there, and obviously fair play for Ian Dean to go and solve the problem with an opponent now who, personally, I think is a tougher fight for Kennedy.
100%.
She's certainly got more experience. She's got a lot of cage time. I think the majority, if not all of her fights, have gone the distance. So she's got a lot of cage time in there. And as you say, Kennedy had quite a significant break from combat sports before returning to action last year. So, you would say like the form and the cage time, that's all with Mafalda. She's a very, very good point striker. She's good all round, really. And I think this is the kind of fight that's going to give Kennedy a really big test. From Kennedy's point of view, every time she stepped out into that arena, it has gone off. She brings so much support with her. And from what I'm told for this one, she's bringing more people with her than ever before, which you would expect for a title fight. I think the atmosphere is going to be absolutely insane. She's co-main event as well. So big opportunity here for a star-making moment. I think there's going to be a lot of eyes on this one in the women's mixed martial arts world.
100%. The third title fight we have then is obviously the men's flyweight fight between Sherdog and Nicolas LeBlanc, in which is, probably another one of those dream fights, I think, for Ian Dean to probably put on. When you look at Sherdog, 6 wins in a row, what a run he's been on. You look at Nicolas LeBlanc, he's had 4 wins in a row over, and that was kind of after an almost 2-year layoff when he lost to Luke Shanks. The guys he's beaten, I suppose, in there, Luke Poli and others as well. He's looked so good. I feel like Sherdog is one of those guys that if you'd seen him earlier on in his career, and he lost 5 fights early in his career. I was actually watching his fight against Salah Zamagulov the other day because he was fighting, where was he fighting? He was fighting Octagon or somewhere. And you think, Jesus, this guy's been around fighting high-level guys for a long time. He fought Tagir Ulanbekov in 2017, Sam Creasy in 2016, Damian Rooney in 2014, Paul Marin in 2013. It took him 10 years to become an overnight success. He's one of those guys, Sherdog. And I think we need to appreciate that a bit more, as people covering the sport, but as fans and stuff as well. What a guy like Sherdog has actually achieved in his career, from a very tough start to it, to going 6 in a row, to holding the title, to being, one of the best fighters in Cage Warriors. And, I think we need to start adjusting our thoughts on him as well. Like, I know he's 34 years of age and everything like that, and the UFC don't like to sign lads who are older than that. And, we're not moving forward into that conversation, I suppose, yet. But he should definitely be in the standings because he's one of the best fighters in Europe, one of the most dominant champions as well. And if he wins this, he'll go to the next level. But it's a very intriguing fight, isn't it, Brad? And just first on Shaj and then on the fight itself, it's a big one.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Shaj, very similar kind of situation to Sam Creasy for me. If you talk about them in terms of their ability, their stature as fighters, 2 of the biggest unsung heroes in the lower weight classes in European mixed martial arts. And the fact that they're now, both world champions in legitimate organizations, and they fought each other for a world title in Cage Warriors, it speaks to the level that they're both at. Shaj, just technically a brilliant fighter, incredible fight IQ, the preparation that he puts in, just absolutely top notch. And he is going to be a tough fight for anyone on his day. Nicolas LeBlanc, this guy's just a menace, right? He's going in there and he is icing people. He can submit you with a crazy bulldog choke. He's got a mad guillotine. He's got that judo background, so he's very, very strong in the clinch, and he's carrying a mallet in his glove. This is a guy with serious knockout power, responsible for 2 of the worst knockouts I've seen in Cage Warriors. The one against Lopoli up against the cage, and then against Darren O'Gorman back in the day, an absolute shocker. This guy is mad dangerous, and he's been waiting for this title shot. He obviously was originally supposed to fight Shaj earlier this summer, and with UFC Paris in September, LeBlanc was just dead set on the fact that he was going to beat Shaj, and then he was going to get the call for UFC Paris, which, to be completely honest, if he had beaten Shaj, I wouldn't have been surprised at all to see him on that UFC Paris card. It seemed tailor-made. So I've not spoken to him about this, but I would assume, if that was me, there'd be a bit of bitterness that I didn't get that opportunity, and he's going to want to take that out on Sherdog. But Shaj fighting, finally defending his world title at home. This is going to be a big moment for him. As you said, he's 34 years of age now. This could be a career highlight moment for him. Defending that title on home turf. And look, all he can do at this stage is carry on beating guys. And whether it's the UFC or whether he stays in Cage Warriors or whether he goes somewhere else, if he can keep putting the performances in that we've seen for him, he's going to be a problem for anyone at 125 pounds.
100%. And it's interesting as well, just on the point about LeBlanc, like that bitterness can either work for you or work against you. Some lads, like look at Paul Hughes, for example. The UFC going to sign me, didn't, and then he had 3 or 4 Cage Warriors fights, and he won them all, and he used it, to his advantage. But then you see some guys, like, I went to, there was a point there last year where a lot of guys were going to Contender Series, And then they come back and they get a tough matchup because, like, this is a UFC level guy, and then they'd lose, whether it was in Cage Warriors or outside of it. And it's just that, like, even we saw it with your man Steve Erceg in the UFC. You know, he almost won the title. You know, he was almost the best 125 pounder in the world, and then he loses his next fight. You know, he gets knocked out pretty early. It's very hard to touch the sky and come back down to earth. You know, geez, that was a great saying for me. I just came up with that out of nowhere. And I'm getting that printed on a fucking t-shirt.
Got a tear in my eye, Sean.
That's fucking genius. I must fucking write that down.
I'm off the tattoo parlor right now to get that.
No regrets.
I'm gonna have it on the wall right next to Live, Laugh, Love.
Oh God Almighty! Yeah, I'll have to start a book club or something there. Anyway, those 3 title fights, very very intriguing. Do you know what? I'm gonna go with Sherdog to win that one, just out of respect more than anything else. Let's touch on a few more fights here, Brad, before we go. God Almighty, I think you know the one I'm looking forward to, and it's James Power against Dimitri Grillian. When I saw, I hadn't heard that this fight was happening, and I was looking at the cards last week, and I was like, because you know, to cut down the fourth wall here, Brad usually sends me like the finalized card just before we're doing this, and I was like praying that this one was still on. It was still on it. And I'm like, oh please, and it was, thankfully. So, you know, like James Power is a guy who I looked at when he came into Cage Warriors, and I was thinking, oh my God, this guy is next level. You know, really good. He beats Adam Shelley, beats Lupus Capera. You know, obviously loses to Michele Pajani, but you know, Pajani looks like an absolute beast of a fighter altogether, and he's won his last 2 in a row. You know, Grillian, we've mentioned him in so many recent episodes because he's beaten so many of the good guys. Like he beat Patrice, he beat Bungard, beat Adam Cullen. I don't know what to say about this one, Brad. I'm just, like, James Power to me is one of the best technical strikers out there at the moment at this level. He can really do it all. He's just still putting it all together, like a touch green, but when that goes off of him, he's going to be some fighter. And Grillian at 29 years of age, 10 fights into his career, it feels like he's getting to the place now where he's really getting going. As I said, 1-2 fights in a row, and this is, I'm going to say, friends, this is his time, but that could actually be for both Power and Grillian. What a fight this is. I can't believe he didn't put this together, to be honest, because this probably should be a fight that should be for a title or something, because it's that high level. I can't wait, Brad. What do you think?
Yeah, look, I think if George Hardwick hadn't come back to Cage Warriors, this would be for the title, right? Yes. You know, I think whoever wins this probably got it nailed on to fight for the belt next. I'm not sure how you could really deny either of these guys a title shot with a win, but obviously we'll see how things shake out next year. I mean, what can you really say about it? You know, both guys technically incredibly sound, incredibly proficient, absolutely tough as nails, no reverse gear between them. They are going to tear lumps out of each other. And let me tell you, if this fight does end up being a number 1 contender fight, the man who wins it will have earned that title shot, and they're going to have to earn it to get past their opponent in this fight. Very, very competitive, high-level stuff. If the bookmakers haven't got this dead even, they're losing some money somewhere.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Like, I'm going to lean Power. I just love his style. I think he's a top level fighter, but it could go either way. You know, I don't know if Dimitri Grillian's his nickname is the prospect killer, but it probably should be, because he's beaten so many of them down through the years, and he's obviously won himself as well. But it's a very, very intriguing one. There's a lot though on this card as well. I mentioned this a second ago about the contender series and guys coming back and getting very tough matchups, and I think Justin Burlinson's probably the standout for that. He's 8-2 record now. He almost got to the UFC. Obviously he beat Skibinski. Then he came back and lost to Reese McKee, and he's a great win in his last fight. A finish of Jamie Richardson. Coming in here against Theodore Begrin, who's coming over from Sweden. He's won his last 4 in a row. It's his first opportunity, obviously, in Cage Warriors, but a lot of finishes in there as well. But obviously, Burlinson is from the area as well, so this is a massive fight for him. I think if Burlinson wins this, it really puts him back in the mix, doesn't it? At Cage Warriors and towards the title and everything like that, and back to where I suppose he wanted to get. But like, a loss is massive for him too. It's a big fight for Justin Burlinson here, Brad.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, Justin Burlinson's had a much bigger fight than this to deal with over the past year or so. He's recovered from testicular cancer. So fair play to Justin. Getting back in there, absolutely phenomenal stuff. MMA must be a walk in the park after this with something like that. This is his second opponent for this fight as well. His original opponent was much more experienced. So, he's not looking for gimmies. He's not looking for easy ones. He's wanting to take big fights that are meaningful and they're going to get him moved up that ladder. A win here for Justin. Does he wait for the Contender Series next year? Can he walk straight into a Cage Warriors title bout? I think either of those things are a distinct possibility. Obviously, James Sheehan is the current champ in that division. Telling me you won't want to watch Burlinson versus Sheehan, I'd be all over that. But yeah, he's got a great fight in front of him though. Let's not count Theodore out. Hearing a lot of good things about this guy. I've seen a couple of his fights, and I don't think he's going to be any walk in the park by any means. So yeah, very much looking forward to seeing these two guys throw down.
Indeed, 100%. That's the main card. So the undercard, there's a lot of talent again on this undercard. For the Irish side of it, Emer Darcy, who looked so good last time out. She's taking Daniela Sanchez. And Emer's coming from Compound MMA, which is one of the other gyms in Dublin, not one of the the bigger gyms, and it's great. Over the last while, we've seen a lot of Irish people go. Look at Conor McCarthy and the last Cage Warriors, and Solomon Simon. Both from Solomon Simon obviously from down in Waterford, but comes up and trains in Dublin and stuff. But from that gym, and obviously Conor from Peter Queeley's gym as well down in Naas. It's great to see all the new gyms kind of emerging and getting opportunities as well. But Emer Darcy, she definitely looks, a special fighter, and belts popping up now as well. She's something to aim for, I suppose, over the next while. I'm sure, there's talks to Sean Clancy Jr. being on this card as well. Brad, is there? I'm sure he's fans.
Yeah, rumors are abound is what I will say. So if Sean can get a fight on this as well, by the time this comes out, that I imagine if that's happening, it will have been announced. But yeah, obviously be great to have Sean on there to see him performing once again before the year's out. But look, man, this undercard's unreal. The Aiden Lee versus Daniel Conrad. Aiden Lee's been around, fought everywhere, former title challenger. Daniel Conrad coming off that title fight himself against James Sheehan, one of the best Cage Warriors title fights I've seen in recent years. Conrad now dropping down to 155, which I think is definitely the division for him. Aiden Lee, former featherweight at 155, it's the right division for him now. I think that's going to be a very, very exciting fight. And then we're going to have some all-action guys on the card. The likes of Albert Diaz, never in a boring fight. He's taking on Bailey Gilbert, who's a great brawler himself. Michael Chalmers is going to be on the card. Leon Arms is going to be on the card. And one that's kind of flying under the radar. We talked last week about the light heavyweights, Charles Joyner and Yannick Bahati. Charles Joyner, 6'8" Thai boxer, absolutely wrecking people. He's fought a couple of times in Cage Wars already this year and looked really, really good. Yannick Bahati, a big step up in competition. He's been around the block, fought a lot of tough guys. So this is a great test for Charles. And, maybe Charles is going to have half an eye on the James Sheehan Andy Clamp fight that's taking place in London. Maybe he's going to be looking at Cage Warriors title shot himself next year.
Yeah, James Webb. I don't think James Sheehan will be liking the fight does like
look, he's had a bit of time off, right? Maybe he's had a few big dinners. Who's to say?
I was to say. Indeed, I'm sure Sean Clancy's fans won't be happy he's not the main event. But sure, look, these things happen at MMA. What a prospect he is, though. Jesus Christ! I don't think I've seen a better athlete coming through in Europe in a very, very, very long time. So get the Facebook commenters under control, and there's a lot to and that's me saying that now, no one else. So there you go. We leave it there, Brad. Thank you very much for joining me. This is a barn burner of a card. Looking forward to the Cage Warriors closing out the year here in style, and appreciate you all year coming on and helping me break down these cards. It's always a joy, Brad. Thank you very much. Cage Warriors going down November 23rd over in Newcastle. If you can't get there, UFC Fight Pass all around the world. Tune in. Brad will be on the call. And thank you to everyone for watching this show. We'll see you all next time.